Well, good day. I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you my trolling motor converted kayak. The kayak originally, we lived up in Montana for about 15 years, and I got the kayak, initially I got that orange one over there. It's about 8.5 feet. This thing here is 14.5 feet. This one also had a steerable rudder, and I thought it made it much more convenient for, first of all, the length. It tracked better, and with the steerable rudder, I just sat back there and steered the thing with my feet, which was a lot more convenient going downstream on the Yellowstone. I also used it one more time on the for a trip between Great Falls and Fort Benton. Anyway, moved back down here to the southeast here about 5 years ago, and decided a couple of years ago to convert this thing to a trolling motor powered unit. And like most of you, I got on, first thing I thought about was getting on YouTube and seeing what other people had done, and that's what I did. And this is what I came up with. And so let's go over this stuff item by item, and I'll show you my ideas, and hope you can pick something up from it. Well, one of the first things I had to do was figure out how to rig the trolling motor up to the kayak. Fortunately, there were two bolts back here that were the rudder mounted. I could utilize them, but in this area up here, I got a well nut and drilled a hole and inserted the well nut there, and that provides additional stability in addition to the two bolts that were already there. I did have to, as you can see, I made some cuts on the frame of the trolling motor mount in order to make this work. I put a quick disconnect pin in here so that I can take the motor off for transportation and stuff like that. And also, I think this is a antenna mast, a bracket that they use for putting stabilizer wires on antenna masts. And I also got that idea from YouTube. Put that on there. This little contraption here, when your motor when the motor is in the up position, I'll get back to that some other time. When the motor is tilted up, it locks into these brackets, or these little slots on the side of the mount there, and this little rigged up switch that I've got here enables that to release once I launch it into the water, and that allows the motor to tilt back down. And you can see the steering cables here. These were the normal steering cables for the original rudder, and just incorporated that in with this antenna mast mount. And this was, as you can see, is just simply a 7-pin, your typical 7-pin trailer connection. Your speed controller and direction controller is normally, the little switch is normally located in this housing here. And all that have to be shifted up to the front. So anyway, I pulled the controller out of here, used this heavy-duty cable because, you know, it's going to be exposed. And also inside the battery hatch here, these are the original cables that are part of the original trolling motor setup. And I got some flexible ducting in order to protect the cables that I installed. And what I used was a 10 AWG cable for the mount, brought it up here to this little box. Excuse the box. When I set this up originally, I made the mistake of using some smaller wire between the 10AWG and the connectors to the switch itself. And I think in effect I had created a bunch of little resistors, because you can see on the top here that heated up excessively and caused some problems. On the front here, originally the thing was set up with a 100 amp deep cycle AGM battery, which weighs about 66 pounds, I think. And this was the indicator that told me the remaining charge capacity, and I had a little button mounted there that I could disconnect the indicator so it didn't draw whenever I didn't need it. And the different, this is forward over here and reverse over there. So I just found a little switch that would fit the arm on the original switch controller, and that worked out just fine. And then if you look inside, you can, well, I don't know if you can see them or not, but the pedals in there that I use to control the steering. Also, between the battery and this speed controller up here, in this area right here, I have a 50 amp fuse in case things get out of hand on one of the circuits. And I also have a little bilge pump up there along with my standby propulsion device. The outriggers, I got that idea, of course, from YouTube, and it's basically a couple little flagpole mounts and some crab floats that I mounted end to end around a PVC frame. And the way it's set up, I can loosen these wing nuts and adjust the tilt angle on the floats, and loosen these little knobs and take the floats off for transportation. And I think it comes in very handy, because with a long, thin kayak like that, it's inherently unstable or unstable. So you need something like that if you're an old person like myself trying to get in and out of the thing. But that's what we've got set up. Oh, also, this little battery down here, and like I mentioned, originally the thing was set up with a 10 AGM deep cycle 100 amp AGM deep cycle battery. And to cut down on the weight, I spotted this thing on Amazon. And to cut down the weight, I decided to get this little thing. In fact, the way they advertised it, and the one reviewer said that it was used for kayaks, and it only weighs 15 pounds, so I'm at least 50 pounds lighter with that battery. So it makes handling, getting the kayak in and out of the water, plus just moving the battery around a lot easier, and storing the battery in the battery compartment. I've only used the battery once on a test, and so far it seems to be working pretty good. It won't charge up to anything above about 12.5 volts, which concerned me. But if you've read about these things, I think you can take them all the way down to 10 volts without doing serious damage to them. On test outside the water, I put the trolling motor in a water tank and ran it over a 5-day period at different time intervals to test and see how it did work. And in the tank, I ran the trolling motor up to 4 hours with that little battery, and it's still, at the end of the last test, it had like 11.2 volts, which I think was pretty good. They don't have that little battery on Amazon anymore. I found a site on AliExpress that had a battery that looked just like that. In fact, they had a series of batteries that looked just like that, and I think they have different the lithium cells that they have inside seem to be different lithium chemistries. This one appears to be the foil pack on the inside, and it's protected by that hard plastic case. The battery also came with its own charger, and you can see up there next to the negative post a little black cap, and that was the port where you attach the charger to the battery in it, and it seems to work just the way it's advertised. Now, how long this thing lasts and you know, whether it meets all my requirements, I just don't know yet. And but anyway, that's one of the things I hope to find out over the next few days. Yesterday I took the thing out on the creek back behind the house, ran around for about a little over an hour, and everything seemed to be working fine. And when I got back, it still had 11.89 volts. So I'm hopefully optimistic that this is going to work out. But anyway, that's my system. Oh, also up here you can see my navigation device, and that works pretty good. I managed to get a chip with the local southeast United States topographic maps that I put in it, and so I can get a fairly low scale view of on a topographic map as I'm running up and down the creek. And they also have an aerial view on that chip, so it works out pretty good. Well, anyway, let's end this particular part of the discussion and try to get it in the water.